Hi, good morning, and greetings on behalf of Anna and myself from Ecuador. I'm sorry that we can't be with you in person. We would love to have been with you, but we send a big hug, or if you don't like hugs, a handshake to you, and we're thinking of you. I believe that you have, or still are, I'm not sure, doing a series on meals and meals in the Bible. And I want for us to focus on meals on the go this kind of morning. We hear that we of shops and supermarkets kind of doing these kind of deals where you can grab a sandwich and maybe a packet of crisps and a drink, and it's like a meal on the go. And there are different meals on the go. I remember years ago when we, on one of the trips to Romania, we had this massive long trip ahead of us. I forget the route, kind of maybe France, Belgium, Germany, Austria, Hungary, Romania. And we'd left, had to send off from the chapel, and we got to Wheelie Roundabout, and Pete was already delving into his sandwiches just 5 minutes down the road, whereas I managed to keep my sandwiches until the journey back 2 weeks later. And then there's perhaps the most interesting meals I find, or the most difficult meals, are those on the aeroplane, because usually I get stuck in the middle seat. Anna's by the window, and there's me, and then there's some person who is kind of fallen asleep, and then the meals come round, and there's that kind of plastic tray, plastic knives and forks, and you try and cut the food, and the knife breaks, and then there's the roll and the butter, the customary roll and the butter, and you try and spread the butter that's hard, but you can't because your knife's broken, and then the roll falls on the floor, and people are playing football with it. And then your drinks are kind of going up and down because there's turbulence, and it's just a nightmare. But I want us to think about one instance in the Bible of meals on the go. And I'm going to read from Exodus 16. I hope you've got your Bibles ready. Yeah, you at the back. And it's from Exodus 16, and I think it's from verse 1. It says this: the whole Israelite community set out from Elim and came to the desert of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after they had come out of Egypt. In the desert, the whole community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The Israelites said to them, "If only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted. But you have brought us out into this desert to starve the entire assembly to death." Then the Lord said to Moses, "I will rain down bread from heaven for you. The people are to go out each day and gather enough for that day. In this way, I will test them and see whether they will follow my instructions. On the sixth day, they are to prepare what they bring in, and that there is to be twice as much as they gather on the other days." That evening, quail came and covered the camp, and in the morning there was a layer of dew around the camp. When the dew was gone, when the dew was gone, thin flakes like frost on the ground appeared on the desert floor. When the Israelites saw it, they said to each other, "What is it?" For they did not know what it was. Moses said to them, "It is the bread the Lord has given you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded. Everyone is to gather as much as they need. Take an omer for each person you have in your tent." The Israelites did as they were told. Some gathered much, some little. And when they measured it by the omer, the one who gathered much did not have too much, and the one who gathered little did not have too little. Everyone had gathered just as much as they needed. Then Moses said to them, "No one is to keep any of it until morning." However, some of them paid no attention to Moses. They kept part of it until morning, but it was full of maggots and began to smell. So Moses was angry with them. I was going to entitle this message "From Manna to Maggots," but that doesn't sound very pleasant just before your Sunday roast. So I'm calling it "When a Sunday Service is Not Enough." Just want us to bear in mind three things, yeah? First of all, God provides manna as a gift to help us on the journey. Secondly, there's a responsibility for us to, on our part, to collect it. And thirdly, it's both for the individual use and for the collective use. Let's just kind of set the scene. You're probably familiar with it anyway, but it's important that we kind of just set the scene. You remember how God rescued powerfully the Israelites from Egypt, that great deliverance from slavery, and how there was incredible joy and celebration. It comes out, actually, if you've seen the kind of animated Prince of Egypt, there's some great songs in there and a joyful kind of crescendo at the end of the film as the Israelites come out of out of Egypt. Yeah. The shackles are gone, the taskmasters, the whips, the heavy burden, that was a thing of the past. But they never forgot it, because they were to remember it through the Passover every year, even up until today. And we can see the parallels, can't we? Obviously, as Christians, that the Bible says that we were dead and buried, if you like, in our trespasses, in our sin, that the rubbish had piled up high, and yet, we were slaves to fear, to guilt, to past failures, to habits and addictions, trying to keep up appearances. But then we get these verses in the New Testament: if the Son sets you free, you shall be free indeed. We've been made alive with Christ. Grace and faith, these keys kind of working together to set the prisoner free. And we see, don't we, that in the story, how it doesn't take long, actually, for the tambourines of praise, of the praise party, just 3 days or so, in fact, to turn into a grumbling and complaining AGM meeting at Mara in chapter 15. There was water, but it was bitter, and the people became bitter, and they started grumbling against Moses. That was just the start of what was going to be, in one sense, a continuous reoccurrence throughout their travels: grumbling, mumbling, complaining. And you can almost kind of hear Moses think out loud, what have I let myself in for? Maybe it would have been better if I'd stayed in Midian. We get some great verses, well-known verses, don't we, in Philippians, where it says, do everything without complaining, grumbling or arguing, so that you may become blameless and pure, children of God, without fault in a warped and crooked generation. Then you will shine among them like stars in the sky as you hold firmly to the word of life. Don't be a grumbler or a fault finder, be a manna collector. Anyway, back to the Israelites. So they had the Passover meal in Egypt, the great rescue, but now what? They needed regular food. They needed manna, a fresh intake. They couldn't live off yesterday's manna, yesterday's highs. That mission you did in Stockport in 1978, it may have been great for a week, but you can't live off past memories. We, in our vehicle recently, the petrol gauge has been playing up a bit, and we're never quite sure whether we've got enough fuel for the journey we're going to take, going into Quito or wherever. And so I keep kind of topping up to make sure. But sometimes spiritually, our fuel gauge, I wonder, if we're running on empty. I wonder if sometimes we're just coasting in life, and it's not until we hit problems or difficulties or struggles that actually we realize that, we haven't got enough petrol in the tank to deal with what we're facing. Do you remember when Jesus, one time he was with the crowd, and the crowd had been with him along some time, and he said to the disciples, I think, we need to give them some food, because they've come a long way, and I think they may faint on the way. And it's that phrase, he says, I think they may faint on the way if we don't have regular intake manna, we may faint on the way. I want us to think about 5 W's, okay? It won't take too long, just in case you're checking your watch. But 5 W's to do with this. First of all, what? What is it? In the Hebrew, manu, that was literally how it's translated. It means, what is it? What is it? What does it look like? And for the Israelites, well, it was described as small, white, coriander-like flakes that tasted like wafers with honey. It appeared with the morning dew. But what does your or my manna look like? I want us to I want to read a passage from a book that I kind of keep dipping into, and it's called Ordering Your Private World, and by a guy called Gordon MacDonald. And he says this: a man who has claimed Christian faith for more than 10 years recently joined me on the sidelines of a soccer game in which our sons were playing. At half-time, we took a stroll and inquired about one another. I asked him one of those questions that Christians ought to ask each other, but feel odd in doing so. I said, "Tell me, how are you doing spiritually?" And he responded, "Interesting question. What's a good answer?" I'm okay, I guess. I wish I could say I was growing or feeling closer to God, but the truth is that I'm sort of standing still. I do not think I was out of line to pursue the matter, because he gave me the impression he was genuinely interested in talking about this. Are you taking time regularly to order your inner life? He looked at me inquisitively. If I had said, "How's your quiet time?" he would have known exactly how to answer. That would have been measurable. And he would have responded in terms of days, hours, minutes, systems, and techniques. But I'd asked about the order of his inner life. And the key word is order, a word of quality, not quantity. And when he sensed that, he showed discomfort. "When does a guy ever get to order his inner life?" he asked. "I've got work piled up to keep me going for the rest of the year. I'm out every night this week. My wife is after me to take a week's vacation. The house needs painting, so there's not too much time to think about ordering the inner life, as you put it." He paused for a moment and then asked, "What is the inner life anyway?" Suddenly, I became aware that here was a professing Christian who had moved for years in Christian circles, had gained a Christian reputation for doing Christian things, but had never realized that underneath all the action and well-meaning noise, there's got to be something solid, something dependable. Yeah? What is it? What does our manner, if you like, look like? Secondly, why? Because Sunday is not enough. However good the worship is, or the teaching or the fellowship, and please don't kind of despise what you have or take for granted what you have at the chapel. Thank God for the family of believers you have. But the journey is hard, and we will never make it. Yeah, if you start to skip your personal manner, Sunday will not carry you through. Yeah, our personal kind of manner helps keep us focused. It helps us when there are doubts, when there are temptations. It helps us persevere when the storms come, and they do come, so that we don't give up. It helps mold our character. Thirdly, when? Every day. Yeah, every day the fuel gauge has got to go in the right direction. When, in terms of day, it's there's no hard and fast rule, is it? Not it differs for different people in terms of our schedules. Who? Everyone. Moses, Aaron, the leaders. There are no super saints. The manner is for ordinary people. Otherwise, we faint on the way. Where? Again, there's no set plan, is there? Maybe a quiet room in the house is your getaway, or along the beach, up the naves. But, ignore the phone, put it on silent, turn off the computer, don't be distracted. We need to be a people, don't we, constantly that are learning to feed ourselves. Everyone's needs, in one sense, are the same. And also we could say everyone's needs are different. Yeah. The Israelites, remember, they had festivals, they had celebrations, they had feasts at different times of the year, but the manna was the constant. It was the constant thing. It was the thing that kept them and was provided until they got to the promised land. Just a quick word on manna to maggots in the scenario of a local fellowship, because it happens. First of all, how are maggots formed? When food is left, it goes off, and the flies kind of lay their eggs, and as we know, that produces maggots. Food needs to be activated on, doesn't it? Worship, if it doesn't change or transform our lives, if we don't sing, as it were, a new song outside of the building, then there's a danger that the flies will land and lay their eggs, and the manna turns to maggots. Teaching, if the teaching we hear every Sunday or even in our private devotions is not applied teaching, then the manna could turn to maggots. If the fellowship is taken for granted and friendships just become casual acquaintances or numbers on seats, then the manna of the fellowship can easily turn to maggots. Anyway, enough of maggots. Let's read a bit more from Numbers. It's a similar scenario, and some people say it's the same passage but told in a different way. Others say no, it's later on in the life of the Israelites. But Numbers 11 verses 4 and 6, it says this: the rabble with them began to crave other food, and again the Israelites started wailing and said, if only we had meat to eat. We remember the fish we ate in Egypt at no cost, also the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and garlic. Now, my name's in the Bible. But now we have lost our appetite. We never see anything but this manna. The rabble were they were a distraction, weren't they? And they, in one sense, said there's more to life than just this kind of manna. If only we were back in Egypt and we could have fish. That's one reason not to go to Egypt. Yeah, but they were kind of influencing the crowd. A group of people who had lost their stride with God were influencing the others. It's better to be free and having manna on the journey, enjoying your relationship with God, than a slave and fish or meat in Egypt and wishing for the old life all over again. It's often, this quote is a well-known quote. It says that, but the problem was not getting Israel out of Egypt. The problem was getting Egypt out of Israel. The world system, the influences, the pressures, the attractions, the temptations, what would call and scream for our attention. But if we're content with manna every day, that will help us in our fight. Just in conclusion, manna was a free gift to the Israelites. It is to us. It would be easy to hear a kind of a message like this, and and everyone goes away feeling guilty. Do you remember the character Rex in Toy Story, the dinosaur? Something happens and he cries out, "Oh, great! Now I feel guilty." And often Christians come away from meetings just feeling guilty and walking with a cloud over them. And I need to study or read the Bible more. I need to listen to Christian music. I need to pray more or read more Christian books. And I need to extend my quiet time. If you come away from this message with that kind of idea, then I apologize. That's not what I'm driving at. What I'm saying is that God has given us manna. He wants us to build a relationship with him, to enjoy him. It's not about quality, it's about quantity. But we see another aspect of this story. It was an individual responsibility and yet also a collective responsibility. Let me explain. Individually, the people had to go out and to collect manna for themselves, but it was to give them energy for the journey. But also it was to help the community. Why? Because the tabernacle had to be assembled and dismantled and moved on. Needed energy to do that. They had needed people to fight the battles. They needed people to help the sick and look after the young. There was always something needed to be done. And so it was both an individual responsibility and a collective responsibility. And it's the same with us today, isn't it? We don't just kind of want to feed, as it were, ourselves for ourselves' sake, but it's so that our lives may be effective and be an encouragement and a blessing, and that we may be able to serve others. Yeah. Let me change the illustration slightly as we come to an end. Near El Tingo, the town where we live, just in the last few years, there's been a drive-in McDonald's set up, and occasionally, if there's nothing, in the cupboards, I go up to McDonald's, and it's a chance for me to practice my Spanish. So I wind down the window and speak into this speaker thing. Dos hamburguesas con queso con dos papas fritas, por favor. And if they've understood that, which usually kind of comes out okay, 2 hamburgers and 2 small chips, please. 1 for Anna and 1 for me. I'll go around and I collect it. But thinking of McDonald's, someone wrote this. They said, an image of the Christian life is being projected that is not unlike a McDonald's meal. Instant and appetizing in the short term, it's cheap and easy comfort eating. But the trouble with fast food is that it breeds a generation of junkies whose palates have never been developed and whose taste buds do not know there is something more delicious and nutritious available. We need to move people beyond fast food spirituality and train them to become gourmet connoisseurs in their relationship with God. This is not because of some desire to be elitist, rather it's because it is within the grasp of all of us to enjoy the full flavor of the gospel, and because God has designed us for a healthy, more mature, appetizing spiritual diet. McDonald's may be great for kids, but grown-ups deserve something better. We need to move beyond a fast food spirituality. We need manna that helps us through the desert. Jesus said, didn't he, that I am the bread of life. We need to feed on him day after day. Trust that you as a fellowship may be continue to be encouraged in your walk with Christ, and God willing, we look forward to seeing you in the autumn. And take care. God bless. Bye.
Suddenly articulate with 1,000 tongues to lift one cry. Then from north to south and east to west, we'd hear Christ be magnified. Were the whole earth echoing his eminence, his name would burst from sea and sky. From rivers to the mountain tops, we'd hear Christ be magnified. Oh, Christ magnified, let his praise arise. every creature finds its inmost melody, and every human heart its native cry. Oh, then in one raptured hymn of praise we'll sing Christ be magnified, oh, be lifted high. It puts me in the fire, I'll rejoice 'cause you're there too. I won't be fooled by feelings, I hold fast